Hello, and welcome back to the Determined Student channel. One of the things I want to talk about is a phrase that I actually picked up recently while learning Japanese. Is I'm sure some of you have heard this. I actually have heard this once or twice before. I just never really put much thought into it. The it's the way that it's pronounced. It's Mottainai. Now, when you translate Mottainai, it essentially means what a waste. What this phrase is referring to is to try to promote individuals in Japan. What they would use that phrase for is they'll teach that to their kids, or is used in their culture to try to ensure that you try not to waste anything. And that can be something from food, from from the things that you throw away, from the things that you just use single-handedly and that's once, for something that breaks and is that you don't look into repairing it. Those are some examples of what they refer to when they say Mottainai. So there's an importance behind it. As you can see, it's great for the environment, and it is also great for individuals to ensure that you're conscious about the things that you throw away or about the things that you just use once. So, as listed before, one of the examples that I could talk about is trying not to waste food. Now, there's a reason why they use mo dainai when referring to not throwing away food. As you can imagine, it's a waste of money when you do that. When you throw away something that you said you were going to eat and you don't eat it, but yet you throw it away. It, for their parents, for example, if your parents will say, it's a waste to throw that food away because they worked hard to earn that money to be able to provide food for you and your family. Now, that can also be said for farmers. Farmers have worked just as hard and diligently day in and day out to grow the crops and the spices and all the things that was required, the tremendous amount of work and effort that was put into growing that food or spice. That's another reason why they say it's wasteful, or in Japan they'll say mottainai. Again, it's just a trend to promote not to be that way, because you want to do your part as a member of society to ensure that we don't add more to the landfill necessarily. So one of the things, of course, would be just to save it for later. Just put it as a leftover, and you can just eat it the next day, and that would help improve with wasting food. One other thing is that also fits with mottainai, or for being wasteful, is when people just throw away things that could be perfectly used, like used items or things that are lightly used, things that could have been donated or sold instead are thrown away. You hear it about it all the time, where countless individuals may look into doing that because it's convenient. I, at one point, would do that. Not very often, of course. I'm personally more of a minimalist, so I didn't really own much even from a young age. But the things I would own, whatever was not longer of use to me, I chose to discard it. So on occasion, I probably would donate it, but it was mostly discarded. So I can learn from this myself, and I've been slowly trying to implement mottainai as well, to try not to throw something that could have been helpful to someone else, to anyone else out there. Instead, one of the things that we could look into is to try to make a conscious effort to donate it or to sell it. Like one of the phrases over here in the United States, or in America, is one man's trash is another man's treasure. And that fits true in all cases, in all situations. You may not have a use for it anymore, but someone else is more than willing to take it. And oftentimes, some of the things that people throw away turns out is actually something that's of high value, or could have been sold at a high value had they've taken the time to do research or learn about it, the thing they just threw away. I would encourage every one of us, and I'll encourage myself as well, not to be as wasteful and try to practice mottainai when it it comes to things that was previously owned. Another way that we can work on Mottainai is to look into what we also have in the United States, which is reduce, reuse, and recycle. Those are those are some things that we've been told all the time, but when I was taught that in school, I never really took that to heart. I memorized the phrases, but it never actually clicked in my head of what they meant. As in the way that they say reduce, reuse, and recycle is done in a particular order of most important to least. The reason why this order is so important is looking into reduce. When you want to do your best to reduce, if you can go without whatever you're trying to buy, then it's probably for the best that you do. That way you don't add more to the landfill, you don't add more into production. And since something needs to be produced and created, the ozone and the environment gets affected as a result because it requires a lot of output and energy to make that thing created. So if possible, or whenever possible, if you can try to reduce something, for example, instead of using plastic cups, you can look into just buying a reusable container and just using that instead. If you do get that plastic cup, then this is where the next part comes in, which is reuse. Most people don't do this, and I am guilty of this too. We're all just taught of the convenience of single-use cups, single-use plastic. Once it's purchased, we can just toss it. I would encourage as many people, and I'll try to re-encourage myself as well, to try to reuse that thing that we just purchased. We used our hard-earned money to purchase whatever that was, even if it was just like $1 or so. That dollar could have been used something else to help us with investing or with growing. So since we went out of our way to spend it, why not reuse the thing that we bought? Now it can be something as simple as a plastic cup, or it can be anything else that we view as a single-use item. Let's try to do our best to reuse it since we already bought it, if and when possible. And the last thing is recycle. As it implies, once that item is no longer of use, then we should look into recycling. There is one thing I would like to add to the reduce, reuse, and recycle is repairing. This is not something that's really as talked about as much, but I think it holds some credibility and value to this. I would encourage that if possible, let's try to repair the thing that was recently broken if it can be done. If we can look into getting it fixed, then let's go ahead and do that. Let's try to repair that thing. So that way we can reuse it, and then it will go from repair back to reuse. Now, if it gets to the point that we're no longer able to do that, then just try to recycle the materials that you have, if it's possible to recycle. That's another way that we can look into practicing Mottainai. The fourth thing is essentially what I iterated earlier, is just to try to repair. So that's something that they instill in their culture as well. They also they try to do their best to what they're given in Japan, and to try to repair what can be repaired. That is a really great mindset to have, because we're reusing and repurposing something, and we're not spending as much money to get it repaired as it would be to repurchase that item. Depending on what it is, of course. There are instances where it just seems more viable of an option to replace than to repair. Like, for example, a vehicle that has a really bad motor, a really bad engine that can no longer run, and you're quoted $10,000 to get a new engine, as to oppose to buying a new car that can run you like around $3,000 or $4,000 if you're looking for a used vehicle. So there's examples like that, but if possible, I would just encourage everyone just to be mindful of Mottainai. Let's try to work on that together, so that collectively our small choices will have a substantial and compounding impact if we all work together on this. I feel like it's really important, especially in this day and age where we hear in the news all the time about greenhouse emissions, about CO2 emissions, and everything else that's going on, that we just have this mindset and mentality of just using an item once, throwing it away, and rebuying and repurchasing when we can instead save that money to invest, do our part to practice Mottainai, try not to waste things, try to sell things if it can be sold or donated, try to reduce, reuse, and recycle, try to repair it if possible, and that's going to make all the difference. I think if we all play a part in this and we can all contribute to that in small ways, I know that it's going to make a substantial impact on the world as a whole. So I just want to encourage all of you to do that. I know trying to work on new habits or trying to instill new concepts or ideas can be a little taxing at first, but I strongly believe that if we can all play a part in this, this will help. And moreover, speaking from experience, whenever I do something new, habit or otherwise, like recording this video, it's a little taxing today, but it's going to get better the more I do it every week. The more I practice on something that my mind does not want to do, because the human mind cares more about convenience more than anything else, so it's not going to want to do any extra effort if it doesn't need to. That's why we all have habits, because it's less effort for the mind, because the mind already knows, okay, do this and do that for day 1, do this, do that for day 2, do this addiction, do this habit for day, it just goes on and on. It's a little difficult at first, but the more you do something, the easier it gets. And I strongly believe if we can all practice Mottainai, do it for about a month, then it's going to make a substantial impact in our lives, in our savings account, in our money, our choices, and it would just have us have a more stronger mindset of showing appreciation for what we have already, and to try to reuse it, and to try to cherish the things that we have, instead of just thinking, I'm just going to use it once and toss it. And it's helpful for the animals too, and the environment as a whole. Less trash out there. That's essentially what I want to talk about, is Mottainai. Again, it just means what a waste. So let's try not to waste it. Instead, let's be mindful about our decisions, because every choice that we make truly does leave an impact on ourselves and the world as a collective. Yeah, that's all I really wanted to talk about. As always, I appreciate you stopping by and checking out my channel. If you liked the video, give it a like, and subscribe as well. It would be greatly appreciated, so I can go out and reach as many people as I can. And that way I can motivate others, and others can motivate me right back. If we can all help each other. All right, that's about it. Take care now.